your mind.
Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. Myself and Steve were just carried away there. We were chatting away, as usual. This is what we do on the radio show. We normally just chatting to each other. And then we said, oh, look at the time. It's 7 o'clock. We have to get started. Yeah. So we'd be chatting anyway, even if nobody was tuned in and listened to the radio show. That's just the way we are. Good evening, everybody. It's Sunday, the 13th of July, 2014. Loads of things going on in the world. Now, we are planning to have, our guest on tonight we aim to have James Gilliland on, but we haven't heard from him just yet, so we don't really know what's going on. So, just in case, we're going to, give it a half hour or so. We've a lot to talk about anyway. And if James comes online, we'll get him on board. If he's not coming online, well, we're going to get JP in from Wolf Spirit Radio anyway, and talk to JP, because there's a lot of things going on in the world anyway. So, as JP is a radio host as well, he knows what's going on, so we can have a good banter with that. But hopefully James will turn up and come online. We've left a message for him over in his Eseti ranch and just told him that the show is actually going live. So fingers crossed he'll come online and we'll get him on. But for the time being, before we get James on, let's hopefully get James on, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, Mary, communication channels, please.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thank you, Mary. 046 927 1212 is the number here in the studio. If you're going to call in from outside Republic of Ireland, it's going to be 00353 469 271212. We also have the OYM chat room as well, so I'm going to say hi to everyone that's in there. If you want to join the chat room, just navigate your way to oymradio.com. You will see a button on the left hand side, the live chat button. Just click on that, log in with your real name or to make you up one, and you can pose questions there for our guest this evening, be it JP or be it James Gilliland. We will know very, very shortly. And there we go.
Okay, Steve, that's great. Right, just a couple of things we're catching up on, which happened during the week and things that went on. Yesterday we had the United We Strike Radio Marathon. Had a great marathon, again, great guests, all the podcasts are up there, great information. So pop over to unitedwestrike.com and go onto the podcast page. All the podcasts are there, and you can have a listen to the interviews that myself and Steve did, and I was doing the producing. We had Mick from Liffey Sound FM on our section, so Mick is on there. We had an interview, we had a chat with Mick, so you can have a listen there to the podcast after the show. And also, we heard during the marathon yesterday that Bohemian Grove, it's their annual get-together of all debauchery and everything else that goes on in Bohemian Grove. That's going to be taking place apparently in the next couple of weeks. And just to let you know that that's coming up.
Yeah, and tickets are available. We have some here.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, I'd hate to ask how much the cost of the tickets for.
Whatever price your soul is worth.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Sell your soul to the devil.
Or your firstborn, whichever.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the other thing that I'd just like to say as well, while I was sorting out the production and all the podcasts last night for United We Strike, there was a very, very good debate on People's Internet Radio. There's a good group of people there last night. I was having a listen. I didn't hear all the show, but I heard most of the show, and they had a great debate regarding the water meters. And the one thing I definitely have to agree with, and I think Steve will as well, is that we have to stop the water meters going in. It's simple as that. If we let the Irish government get away with putting in the water meters, we can say goodbye to any kind of democracy that we have. I mean, I know we have very little, but whatever kind or whatever level of democracy we have, that's going to go. It's just end of, because they're going to be bringing in more taxes, more charges and everything else. We have to fight this, and we have to stand up and be counted. We can't just sit back and let this happen, because there's a lot more coming down the line if we do, and we have to fight. And it was a good debate last night. Good people showing their emotions, not getting angry, but showing their emotions about the whole system.
Well, I mean, look, we've seen there are groups around the country who are standing up to the. Look, again, as I said to someone last night, it's not the people who are putting in these water meters. They're just people like you and I. That all they want is to, they just want to earn a crust, put food on the table, and be able to support their family. That's all they want. They're just ordinary working people, which is why I don't think we should be fighting them. It's the people behind them, the people who daren't show their face. They're the people we need to fight. And I think when people are coming around putting in the meters, and allegedly they're due in my area on Tuesday, so I'm thinking of taking an annual leave day from work just to be there, and I actually plan on painting the wall that day. That's my plan. I'm just gonna, right around where this meter is, I'm just gonna be painting the wall there very, very slowly, and I'm not gonna get into any altercations, but I will just kind of say to these lads, this is why I'm doing this, and this is the reason behind it. Because I'm guessing that they're probably just regular guys, and they don't know. They probably don't even know the bigger picture, so they don't know that this is another tax in a series of taxes, and the more we accept, the more will be put upon us.
Well, if you notice that they're using Northern Ireland company to actually install the meters, because they won't have any sympathy with obviously the people down here, and they'll be complete strangers. Now, if you think about that, we talked about that, about the military, the Irish Army possibly being sent over to France and the French Army being sent over here, or whatever country, because they won't have any sympathy with the Irish people. And if there's a curfew, or if, there's certain issues and things happen in Ireland, that's basically what's going to happen, because they won't have any sympathy for the Irish people, because that's the way they want to do it. And that's exactly why, obviously, they hired in, well, that's my belief anyway, they hired a Northern Ireland company, because these guys don't give a care. It's work, they're getting paid, that's it. Who are you? We don't care about you. Where if they were Irish people, then it'd be a different thing. So, that's the way I see it anyway. And we just have to put a stop to it anyway. But Steve, you're going to tell us about the UK.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something about the UK. I'm not sure what it is yet. But it's about the politicians and the government ministers in the UK, and they actually think that the public believe the information in relation to paedophiles. About the cabinet. Sorry, I'm reading that wrong from the unscripted script. Can you believe that these politicians and government ministers in the UK actually think the public believe that the information regarding paedophiles, the cabinet ministers, has gone missing or lost?
Basically, Leon Britton said there's 100 and odd documents that they accidentally lost.
I heard something about that, and actually I heard some woman who was Sloss or Loss or whatever her name was. I believe she was headed. She's supposed to be heading an investigation into the whole thing over there in the UK, and people were saying no, she can't be the head of this investigation because there's kind of a vested interest. I think one of her family members is kind of maybe somewhere in the government. But I believe she stepped down yesterday. She's not going to do it now, so they're going to be looking for someone else to head this investigation into the paedophilia ring in the UK.
Yeah, do you want to talk about what was said in the Telegraph?
Yes. Is that part of it as well? Thank God for the script.
I'm afraid it is.
Yes, it is. Yes. Anyway, according to the Telegraph, former child protection managers says there are up to 20 prominent public figures in alleged paedophile ring covering Parliament and judiciary. Judges, peers and MPs are among 20 prominent public figures who abused children for decades, a former child protection manager has said. No surprise there. I believe every word of it. I mean, look, you don't even have to look any further than your own front door. Obviously not our front door, but, not even your front door, but, there's a lot going on in this country too. Look, you go back a couple of years ago and it was your local parish priest. The guy you trusted with your children. And, they were up to no good. And I mean, we actually don't know, but there's probably a few Irish ministers. Maybe. I'm not saying there are, but I mean, would we be surprised if we heard that there were a few Irish ministers or a few Irish politicians involved in something like that? Because as Alan said to me a long, long time ago, and it's something that's kind of stuck, that when you get kind of powerful, you have all the money that you want and all the power that you want, like some of these politicians do. Well, when you've kind of been everywhere and spent all your money, you have to get new kicks. And unfortunately, seemingly a lot of people, they get their kicks in abusing children, which I think is disgraceful, but,
I know, and if you look at the system, the politicians are corrupt, the banks are corrupt, the education system is terrible, the religious system, there's paedophiles. I mean, every place, the pharmaceuticals, the medical side, everywhere you turn, it's being destroyed and devastated. There's something going on somewhere. So, I mean, I don't know why people can't see it. There's people still out there and they can't see what's going on, and it's unbelievable. It's right in your face. It's getting so blatant now. Now, what annoys me with the whole Dennis O'Brien thing and the water meters is that apparently the Irish government have just let him off 300 million. Debt. They just wiped off a debt of 300 million while people are starving. And one of the people said last night on People's Internet Radio that he knocked on a door and there was a lady there, answered it, and basically she hadn't eaten in 3 days because she didn't have the money to buy food.
Unreal.
I mean, that is just so... And yet the government let Dennis O'Brien off 300 million? I mean, this is why we have to fight. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you can afford your bills or not. It's the principle of the matter. It's all wrong. It's just wrong, and we have to fight. That's just the way it is.
Well, I don't think... I mean, we have to fight, but I'll be honest with you. I don't condone violence, but I think that the time for peaceful protests, I think, is long since past. I think what we really need this revolution. That's what we need. Because, look, the government are expecting it. Weren't they doing the I can't remember, they were doing something, remember, was it in the Dáil? Last year, the year before? Remember they were doing tests. I can't remember what it was. Fortifying the place, or they were doing something to make sure it was.
They were doing, contingency testing. Government contingency testing from Leinster House or from the Dáil to Dublin Castle, because Dublin Castle is fortified, so it's like goes in the Independent, continuity of government, and that's part of the testing because they obviously know something's coming down the line. Now, I heard through the grapevine, I'm not going to say where I heard this, okay, but normally...
You just did, you heard it through the grapevine.
I heard it through the grapevine, that Enda Kenny and Michael Noonan, when they were over in Europe, this was probably, I think, either this year or last year, well, maybe early this year, and they went over in the government jet, and normally when they get on the government jet on the way back, they're normal chatty all the way back and talking about things. But this time, when they came back, they went on the jet, all the way through the flight, they didn't talk, right? There was nothing said between them. They just looked out the window as if they were told, whatever they were told was pretty bad news, and the ramifications, because this, as I say, this information that came through, basically that they weren't talking, and that wasn't normal for them, because normally they're talking to each other.
Do you reckon maybe they went over there and got their hands slapped?
Hands slapped, they got threatened, they were told what's coming down the line, and they have to do what they're told the rope.
Yeah.
You know, now I know people get up and jump up and down and say, well, if the government should be doing this, and why are the banks doing this, because, you know, surely some money is better than nothing. But what people have to understand is, number one, banks don't have a heart. They don't have any empathy. They're a corporate company. They don't care. They don't give you money. That money's made up. So your house is a tangible asset. And they take a tangible asset off you, and it didn't cost them anything because the money came out of thin air, right? Number two, these people at the top, let's call them the Illuminati or the New World Order or the oligarchs or the people who run the world, right? They've no empathy. They're psychopaths. They don't care about you. They don't want to fix the system. And I do, you know, there's great people, we come up with great ideas, but these people don't have the same morals that you have. They don't care. They want to destroy the country. They want to destroy people. They want people to commit suicide. They want the eugenics program. It's as simple as that. So coming up with all the solutions saying, why don't the government do this and why don't he do that, and why can't we just go up and shake Enda Kenny and tell him to wake up, and why is he doing it? Well, put it this way. Let's be really blunt. If you were Enda Kenny, or one of these ministers, say Enda Kenny, and you got flown over to Europe, and you're brought into a room, a bit like the Obama situation, and they said, right, Enda, this is the way it is. This is what you're going to do. And if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you and your family. Okay? How would you feel? Would you turn around and say, yeah, okay, I'm just going to ignore them and I'm going to, you know, carry on and help the people? Or, you know, and they will be very graphic about what they're going to do. They might even show them some footage of exactly the things that they do, because these guys are sick. They are really, really sick. You go down the rabbit hole, you know, deep enough, you will see how sick and deprived these people are. You know, nothing's off bounds. You know, so you have to ask yourself that question. Now, at the same time, this is why it's going to have to be people power, because we can't rely on our government ministers if they're being threatened. You know, they can threaten, you know, government ministers, but you can't threaten millions of people if we all stand up, and that's really, you know, the way we see it. And talking about stand up, Steve, you're going to tell us about Ming.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, fair play to Luke McFlanagan. He's given the European bureaucrats a mouthful about Ireland. We want our money back. And, I mean, I think we all knew when we kind of went down to the polling booths there in May and we put the X in the spot for Luke, then I think we knew that when he went over there, he wasn't just going to go over there and be subservient and, you know, do what he was told. He was going to go over there. I think Luke, I would kind of describe Luke as a dog with a bone. And I think he got the bit between his teeth when he was here. He knows how the people are feeling. He knows how the people are hurting. He sees it every day. And, yeah, he's gone over there and fair play. He's telling them, he's giving them, you know, the thoughts and feelings of the Irish people. Now, what's going to happen, I don't know. Nobody knows. He may be successful, but he's only one man. We don't know. He could be dismissed and put back in his box. We just haven't a clue. But fair play to him anyway. I mean, he's speaking out, and I think that's commendable. It really is. It's unfortunate that, you know, maybe at some point in time we'd love to get him on as well and just have a chat with him. Maybe that might be on the cards. Something we could do at some point in time. It'd be lovely to have him on. But,
well, he has been asked, so we'll chase it up.
Been asked, yeah.
The other thing, which is just ridiculous, and it's just my opinion, for what it's worth, these people actually protesting about Garth Brooks and the whole idea about the concert, when what's going on in Gaza and Palestine, and I mean, it's just, and people losing their houses, evictions, repossessions, and these people are actually campaigning for some music star, you know, who was well known in the 80s and they had a few songs in the 90s, and there's all this campaigning outside the door with with banners saying Garth Brooks and we want him and all this kind of stuff. I mean, what is wrong with these people?
I don't know, but look, they're just people who haven't seen they're still wearing the blinkers. They haven't seen what's going on out, you know, in the real world. They haven't seen the bigger picture. I was in a shop in Navan in County Meath there today, and when I went in the door, the guy was selling Rain Macs, and he had a big cardboard cutout of Garth Brooks, and he had the Rain Mac covered in Garth Brooks. And I says, oh Jesus, what do you like? And he says, yeah, he said, look, I don't agree with all this fiasco that's going on. He said, I think it's ridiculous. But, you know, unfortunately, if it does kick off, people are going to want to go, and chances are, being Ireland, it probably will be raining, so I'm selling the Macs, he says. I said, fair play to you. But no, it is ridiculous, and I was going to touch on that as well in my week, because as Alan said, there's a lot going on. There really is, especially what's going on in Gaza. Now, I mean, look, what's going on in Gaza, I don't know what's going on. I'm not over there. But you have the mainstream media giving you one report, and you have alternative media giving you a second report, and it's very, very hard to know who's telling, not so much who's telling the truth, but what's an accurate account of exactly what's going on in Gaza. But all I know is there are several people who are, I would class them as friends of mine on Facebook, and they've been posting graphic images, and I just can't look at them anymore. I seen them on Friday, and a couple more on Saturday, and I just can't do it anymore. I can't look at these images, and I'm sure you've seen them as well.
I have, yeah.
But there's pictures of kids. I don't know. Again, I don't know when these are when they were taken. It could have been 10 years ago. We just don't know. But pictures of kids with limbs blown off and bits of them hanging off and dead. You know, it really is hard. I got a lump in my throat looking at it, and you know, I mean, look, if it's a soldier, you kind of figure, well, you know, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Yeah. You expect it. When you see innocent, it's really, it hit home to me when I seen it. It really did, and it kind of put a lot of things in perspective, because you see these, I was going to say gobshites, I won't lower myself, but when you see these people protesting, you know, because Garth Brooks is coming over, and Garth Brooks wants to do 5 concerts, because they've sold tickets for 5 concerts, without license, but I believe that's par for the course. But the residents around where they are proposing to have the concert, they've already had 3 concerts there recently from another band called One Direction. And seemingly the agreement is you only have 3 concerts per year, because it's a residential area. So now they're proposing, they've had the 3, now they want another 5. There was talk of cutting down to 3 and 2 matinees. And Garth Brooks said no, he wants to do the 5 night concerts or nothing at all, which I think is very unfair of him. He's been a bit of a you know, whatever, but he could agree to 3. Definitely he could agree to 3, because then, you know,
But the ego. Again,
it's ego, yeah.
And then he's trying to sue Ireland because of his image is being affected, you know?
Of course it is. This is the beginning of his world, his whole European tour or whatever the hell it is. So, I mean, yeah, he probably will sue Ireland. And you know what? The gobshites that are in charge of this country at the moment, at the helm, only because we're letting them, they'll probably pay him. You know, there's another bailout. Well, you know, we have to bring in another made-up tax because, well, Garth Brooks, you know that whole thing with the concert. Well, he reckoned he lost 50 billion or whatever. So I'm sorry, you know, we're going to have to take it out of everyone's pocket.
Didn't they try to rush through some legislation?
Did they?
They would try to put through some legislation regarding this.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I couldn't believe when I heard that. I said they're trying to get through some legislation. So just because some American country and western singer wants to come over here and he's not getting his way, they're trying to change the legislation. So basically, maybe it's got to do with the residents. So what you can do now today, you can't do tomorrow because there's an act and statute being brought in saying that you can't do it just because of Garth Brooks.
And what really annoyed us, is, as Alan said earlier, there's so much going on, not just worldwide, but even outside our own door here with the evictions and people going hungry and all that. Water meters and the whole everything, the whole lot that's going on that's making Ireland is in a shambles at the moment, and it's probably going to get worse. But with all that's going on, our fearless leader, Enda Kenny, for people not in Ireland, he would be the equivalent of your American president or UK Prime Minister. He was going to get involved. That's what we heard recently. He was going to get involved to try and bring some resolution to this whole Garth Brooks thing. I believe he's not going to do it now. He's agreed not to get involved now, which I think is the right thing to do. Because if he was to get involved, I think any credibility he has, not that he has anyway, but it will be just torn to shreds.
No, Garth Brooks is probably saying, no, Enda, don't get involved. I don't want your reputation.
Actually, you're probably right. Garth Brooks is looking at Enda Kenny going, hang on a second, you want to get involved? No, if you get involved, it's going to go horribly wrong.
Exactly. I was going to say, how's your week? But
Sorry.
You're going through it there.
That's pretty much my week, and I was going to just touch on the water meter thing as well, that they've finally arrived in my area, and they actually arrived in the estate of, the estate of the road where my mother-in-law lives?
Yeah.
Yeah, they arrived there on Friday, and there's probably about 40 houses, I think, in that scheme. And guess how many people protested? You can probably guess. Go on.
None.
Not one. Not one person got up off their arse. So my wife had a chat with her mother-in-law and says, how come you didn't protest? And her mother, sure, you have to do it. And what can you do? And she says, what can you do? So she gave her all the information of what you can do and all this. I won't repeat it. There's no point. But then she spoke to another friend of hers that lives in the same scheme. And she asked her, I'm very surprised because this girl now, she'd be very kind of, she's a go-getter really. And she said, how come you weren't out protesting? And this lady said, I was going to, and I was talking about it to the husband, and we just decided in the end that nobody else was doing it, so we weren't going to bother. And I thought, how effing lazy. One person can make a difference, even if you can only make a difference to you. That's where it starts.
Well, I'm the only one that protested in an estate of 52 houses.
Yeah.
Just me. And I'm the only one that doesn't have a meter in 52 houses that I'm aware of.
No, you're right. But you have a helicopter over your roof all the time, and there's a guy outside walking up and down just keeps looking in with binoculars. But you can ignore that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That helicopter that happened a couple of weeks ago was a bit strange. That's a different story. Okay, so that's your week.
That's my week. How's your week?
Not too bad. Just a couple of things on the list. I've seen Red Ice Radio Creations, they normally have good stuff on there, and one of the things they had on their website, I don't know whether people are aware of this, is that ISIS, which is this, what would you say, group in the Ukraine, I won't say paramilitary, but they're funded by the CIA. The latest and most ambitious plan yet by ISIS is to invade Spain, according to Red Ice Creations. Now, the article we're going to put on the registered users, we're going to put on the web links and we're going to send it out to you. But basically, yes, because apparently Spain was something got to do with the land from years ago, and they want to take it back. So that's one of their latest and most adventurous plan yet, is to take over Spain. So if anybody's based in Spain, you should have a read of that. I'm sure it'd be good reading for you. The other thing is that we didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, but we have an article here from one of our listeners, Patrick, And there's a company called Evergreen Eco Services, and they do septic tanks. And apparently that they've done the usual limited company, owes money, closed down, set up a new company, different name, and then saying they have loads of customers. And they're kind of sending out leaflets to people saying that, oh, there's acts and statutes, and you have to get this ready, and we can help you with that, blah 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 blah. But the fact that they're doing a dodgy with their old company, to avoid, paying taxes, I assume, or, creditors, and then setting up a new company, and then they're telling people about obeying the law and acts and statutes when this apparently is going on. Now, I have a load of attachments which Patrick sent me in. I had to kind of flick through them, but just keep an eye out. I think they're based down in over near Sligo, somewhere around there, over the west coast anyway. Eco Services, just be aware, Evergreen Eco Services. Their old company name was Biotech, and they changed it to Evergreen. Looks to be different. It has a registered address. Must be the address and leaflet is the same as Biotech. So their old company was called Biotech, and now they're called Evergreen Eco Services. So just be aware of that. Again, we talked about the water meters and the whole idea. Now, somebody said to me, I forgot I think it was the chaps last night I was listening to. They were talking about trying to find a way to actually reduce the pressure of the water on houses, but they can't do it because if they lower one person's house, they're going to lower everybody else's. It's just you can't. It's either on or off, and that's it. And again, bully boy tactics. And we've just heard. I don't know what you've seen in the paper, but Pat Rabbit has been kicked out of the cabinet by
Joan Bruton.
Joan Bruton. Obviously, she's having a reshuffle. But somebody's going to take over his place. I mean, it doesn't matter. I still think if Pat Rabbit retired now, in 20 years' time, if the people had the power, he should be dragged out and he should be put down for treason, because it was on his watch that this was all happening. I don't care how old he is. Look at Ralph Harris, 86 or something, wherever age he is, and he's still being done as a paedophile. So I don't care how old Pat Rabbit and these ministers are when they say, well, I'm our government now, it's not my problem. Yes, it is your problem because it was on your watch and you are responsible regardless. So I think that should be done. But there you go, that's just my opinion. Right, how are we doing? Is there any sign of James there, no?
No.
No, okay. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to get JP in from Wolf Spirit Radio and Ever Beyond Radio, because JP has his finger on the pulse with loads of things that are going on in the world anyway. And if James, in the meantime, if James comes on, what we'll do is we'll get James on. But we don't know what happened. We left him a message anyway, so we'll try, and if he doesn't come on, we'll obviously reschedule it. We don't know what happened there. We'll find out. But we'll go to a musical break, and then after the break, we'll just bring in JP. So we'll see it in a minute.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
And we're back. That was a little the short version of Duran, please tell me now. Tell me something. I don't know.
Tell you something.
Tell me anything.
Right, okay. It's a pity, as I say, we don't have James. Something might have happened on James's side. We'll touch base with James and we'll find out what went on. But JP is a great guest. He hosts his own radio show, Wolf Spirit Radio and Ever Beyond. And like most radio hosts, because we speak to so many guests, there's so much information that we kind of accumulate. So good evening, JP. How are you doing?
Greetings and good afternoon from Northern Scotland here.
Northern Scotland, right, JP? Let's get into it. Let's find out what's been happening in your neck of the woods, what you've been talking about, and what guests you've had on, and what's the topic of conversations.
Well, as it has been the ongoing thing of the whole Jimmy Savile stroke. Kenneth Clark, let's name some names.
Okay.
The whole thing coming out very slowly. It's squeezing its way out. Paedophile scandal, the whole thing, but it's all starting to connect together. People are now looking at the royal family in a much more askance way, let's put it like that, rather than bowing their heads to it. People are really seem to be losing respect rapidly for the royals. I mean, I know you guys over in Ireland don't get much from an area. So we've had that. What else has been going on?
We are under British rule still. I mean, you do know that, JP.
Of course. I mean, actually, the whole world is under British rule. So, I mean, whether you're part of the British Commonwealth or the United States of America or something, if you speak English or you speak Urdu, you're part of that empire. Basically, she's really an emperor, not empress, not a queen. And rules over an empire, and the empire is actually a corporation which deals in arms and drugs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And there's so much exposure now with the whole Jimmy Savile thing, and we had that chap from I forget his name. The chap who was it's a knockout. What's his name? Stuart Hall.
Stuart Hall, yeah.
Stuart Hall. So he's been done. That Radio 1 DJ was done. I don't know the DJ, but he was done. He had a count of 34 counts of, assault, and he's been done. And then we have Rolf Paris being done, and it's all kind of coming out of the woodwork now. As Steve said, there seems to be a closing of ranks because there's a lot coming out. I mean, imagine Leon Britton pretending to lose the documentation, or forgetting where it is, or forgetting the information. I mean, how stupid do they think the public are to accept that kind of?
Yeah,
excuse.
yeah. I mean, this is worse than my dog ate my homework. It's like a lamer excuse than that.
Yeah, no, it's getting ridiculous, but it's being brought out. That's the great thing about it. All this information is coming out. Now we were talking about they're trying to bring in water meters over here, and there's a big backlash against the government. I mean, I don't think anybody respects the government anyway, or most sane people can see what's going on with the Irish government, and we just have total disrespect for them because it's one rule for them, another rule for us. Austerity, they wouldn't know austerity if it hit them in the face. And we have people over here who are being evicted through the banking system, repossessions, the whole lot. I mean, just day after day, there's so many people going to court, and it's just unbelievable. You there, JP?
Yeah, sorry. The first part of that was completely broken up. The second part of that was accelerated. So that was, it's one of these little data things. Do you want to lead in the last part again, please? Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that over here we're fighting against the installation of water meters, because we don't. I mean, as I say, sane people have a total disrespect for the government because they can see what the government are doing, and they keep, going on about austerity. We all have to suffer it. But, these people don't have a clue. They're on a different planet totally. The only people that think they're doing a good job is themselves, and that's them looking in the mirror and telling themselves that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of a difference between what the, quote, elites think of themselves and of us, and of what we think of them and what we think of ourselves. There's 4 different areas of examination, each of which needs to be changed.
Yeah, and what's happening your end? I mean, what's the news that you've been talking about on Wolf Spirit Radio or ever beyond? What's been on your top
What's been
list?
on my list? Well, like I said, I've been deep into this. I've been talking with Thomas Sheridan, who's been a guest on your show quite a few times as well. And we're doing this back and forth. We kind of discovered the link. We've been bouncing around. A few months ago, we did it, and we've bounced around the link between Jimmy Savile and the Yorkshire Ripper. Now, many people think, oh yeah, Jimmy Savile. For some reason, he goes to see the Yorkshire Ripper in jail in Broadmoor. Then it turns out that Jimmy's got a key to Broadmoor. He can step in there whenever he wants and go to anybody's room and use anybody of the prisoners for his own purposes. Obviously he did, it's not now. But he was a good friend with the Yorkshire Ripper. Now, what Thomas and I have been deducing from this is that actually there is no such thing as the Yorkshire Ripper, and that what they were the results of satanic rituals, and they were a way of sort of getting rid of the body. And then, they hatch a little plan, and the Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe goes along with it, and they probably say, look, you can spend a few years in jail. We'll keep you nice. We'll keep you comfortable. And then when you get out, you'll get this, we'll give you some reward or other. But essentially, I believe that what we call serial killers are much more to do with satanic rituals and like the getting rid of the dead bodies, basically, than actual serial killers and murderers.
Well, you know how deep the rabbit hole goes. I mean, some people don't realize how satanic and how barbaric these people are and what they do with these satanic rituals and the things that go on. And we have to be very careful that we don't judge people by our own morals, because just because we wouldn't do it doesn't mean that they wouldn't do it. And a lot of people do that, and that's part of the whole disbelief system, because they wouldn't do it. They believe that these people wouldn't do it. I mean, it's like Hitler, for example. Just because you won't go off and kill, apparently 6 million Jews doesn't mean that somebody else won't do it, i.e. Hitler. So we have to stop putting their morals onto them, and we have to start believing that there are sick people and psychopaths out there who will go off and do this stuff. And what's happening now in the media is that more and more, I mean, I don't know whether the mainstream media have, being kind of, they know they have to report some of this stuff, because if they don't, it's going to be so obvious that they're controlling it. But it's so obvious now at the moment that they are being controlled anyway. But it's coming out bit by bit.
One of the interesting things is the idea, what they call it. They doth protest too much.
Yeah.
These people who are squealing, and there is one who will never be mentioned in the press, and will even sued people on Twitter for not even talking about him. And so we won't mention his name, just in case of litigious things, but he's like the Scottish version of a Swiss mountain, let's put it that way, and has construction industry connections. And basically he's like the distraction. He's like the barking dog that is designed to pull people's sights away from who I believe is the kingpin, which is Kenneth Clark.
Mm.
I'm very happy to say I know that Kenneth Clark, I have spoken to a first-hand witness of somebody who was abused by Kenneth Clark, and I think you have too, Mr. Fellows, Ben Fellows.
No, we were hoping to get Ben on the show, so that's something that we're going to have to do. But one of the movies, we all know that, they're all into this kind of, into the drugs, into the child abuse and these sex parties and everything else. And one of the things I said before is there's a movie that came out called Personal Services by Cynthia Payne, who was a madam in the 70s. Now,
yes, in Streatham.
That's right. I worked with a man who was 65 at the time, who was a personal friend of hers, and he was one of the people that actually used to partake of her services on a regular basis. I won't go into the details that he told me and the photos that I seen, but basically because, I am, I like the evidence. I didn't really want to see the evidence, but he kind of showed me the evidence. And he was kind of very blasé about it. Now, Steve, you've seen the movie yourself. What did you think of it? What do you think of it? You get the gist of it anyway, that whole
look, from start to finish, you can, it's a good film. It's old. I think it's back in the 80s. I think it's
87.
87, yeah. I mean, it looks a bit dated by today's standards. However, the message that's in it, I think, still runs through today. The message is there, and talk about Hollywood. As you always say, Hollywood shows us what's going on. They certainly did in that film, although I think it was made in the UK with Julie Walters.
Julie Walters, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see exactly what's going on. You can see the different people with their different little fetishes, and you can see the corruption. It's all there. If anyone can get a copy of it, I don't know how easy it is to get a copy, but it's worth a watch.
It's worth a watch because it's educational to get kind of an idea of what goes on. And my eyes were opened up, trust me, when I, having a boss who was kind of into all of that and certain things that he got up to. And this is the thing about these people. I mean, they're on a different level. I mean, if you remember, we talked about Aleister Crowley. Now, Obama was a couple of shows ago. We mentioned that there was a photo taken of Obama with, it said AC 2012, and it was a photo of Aleister Crowley. Now, he was a full-time Satanist, an occultist, who used to mingle with royalty and the stars at the time in the early 1900s. And it's just amazing that he's wearing a T-shirt with Aleister Crowley on it, and there's people out there that are just, sick, basically. And on what they do, they've no empathy and of what's going on. So, let's hope that, the karma is changing. Now, here's something that I'm going to read out for you here, JP. Now, I got this off Benjamin Fulford's website, so people can check this themselves for the research. But this is what Benjamin Fulford has said. He said, these days the Kabbalists are being purged on multiple levels. Last week saw the death of Richard Mellon Scharf, one of the owners of the Federal Reserve Board. He follows Richard Rockefeller, several members of the Warburg family and many others. The Bush-JP Morgan nexus is also under serious attack. Last week saw the unannounced deaths of at least 5 more bankers associated with Bush. Now JP Morgan chairman Jamie Dimon has announced that he has cancer. Sources close to Dimon say he's planning to fake his own death before it becomes real. The murders are being carried out to silence the bankers and prevent them from fingering Fuhrer Bush Sr. message to Bush, they are coming after you, there's nowhere to hide. The arrest of former French Prime Minister Nicolas Sarkozy on corruption charges last week was also part of an ongoing worldwide purge on the cabal's top ranks. So apparently there is something going on. The other thing is that it says here, exposure of the paedophiles in politics, people in power blackmailed, so you're told what to do because of the abuse of the children. We know that the people get into power because they have a dodgy background and they might be into little boys, little girls and all that kind of stuff, and they have control. The same with Skull and Bones. They take the video footage of what they do in the coffin and they have that on tape, and then you do what you're told. Obviously, Russia has also paid off 90% of the Cuba's debt. And Russia has got rid of 26 million, or billion, I think, billions worth of bonds in US bonds. So there seems to be an awful lot going on in a good way now. There's this kind of cryptic message that was put out by Christine Lagarde. We put it on our Facebook page. And obviously another interview by another radio station talking about it, and she's talking about the seventh and numerology. And
oh yeah, I mean this is the fascinating thing, that she did this entire speech to people, finance people. What the heck was she doing a numerology lesson? I mean, and she was pretty adept. You could tell she was adept at messing about with these numbers, because some things she implied that she didn't actually explicitly say. So she works on this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the funny thing is that the head of the IMF is coming on and talking about numerology and the number 7, and now we've had dates come and go. For some reason, we get loads of dates and they just come and go. So, with end of the world dates and everything else. So we take everything with a pinch of salt and see it for what it is. Now, the date of the 20th of July has been banded around. Between the 16th, because the BRICS countries, their system is apparently going to be coming online on the 16th of July. And what they're saying is that on the 20th of July, Obama tends to come out and do a speech every Sunday evening, and it might be just convenient for him to come out on Sunday and go, the banking system, computer systems have a virus, so we have to shut them down, and he won't be available, and then that will be the start of it. Now, we did have David Hugo Boyle on the show, and we said, well, Christine Lagarde have been talking about a reset of the system and devaluing the dollar by 30%, and that could mean the euro as well, I don't know. But he thinks that there is going to be a reset, but from the kind of good guys as opposed to the negative side. What's your take on that?
Well, the revaluation is... There's several levels of revaluation that people are talking about, and one of them is the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. And it's a bit one of these scam things where, buy a whole load of these things and, the pennies for a 10,000 dinar thing. And then the promise is that the dinar will come up to the price of $1, so that this $10,000 thing will become $10,000. But who knows how much the dollar is going to be worth when that actually happens? And then there's the idea of a global financial reset. Many people have been talking about that. Like you're saying, there are several different people who are saying this. And, for instance, if the Fed says we're going to reset the currency, you know that it's not going to be in your favor.
Yeah.
But if another group comes along and says we're going to reset the currency, then it may well be in our favor. It depends which group is actually who's actually got their hands on the black screens. And the black screens are the things that are able to reset finances.
Okay, and what's your take on it?
It's until the cabal has been arrested, this cannot happen. What I'm saying is that if we want the good guys to win, then if they do a financial reset and the cabal has not been arrested, then we're going to have more of the same. If the cabal has been arrested, then we got a chance to have a true reset, and it basically it may affect house prices, and it may mean that equity might disappear on the latest houses because they've been overinflated. I'm not sure. I have personal feelings about that, but I'm. Like I said, it depends what order things happen. If we hear, if we hear that the cabal has been arrested, we know who they are. Anybody in the Bilderberger group, everybody in the Bilderberger group, anybody in the royals, in the priesthood, other professionals. But you see, the thing is, you got to get the kingpins, which are the people who are controlling who gets arrested. That's the trick. If you want the cabal arrested, then we can't have the cabal's minions still doing the arresting. They've got to be got at. So it's a very, very subtle process that has to happen in order to get the cabal out of the way, so that we can actually get back in. When we say we, representatives of good guys who are not pedophiles, who are not compromised. Going back to what you were saying before, the whole thing about when they get into these high degrees of it's not really Freemasonry, it's cabal. When you get into the high degrees of it, you have to take oath-taking ceremonies, which get more and more bloodthirsty, more and more evil and nasty and perverse, because they need you to keep the secrets. And you're not going to give it away because you've been doing something that has been filmed and nobody wants to see that. Exactly.
I totally agree. It's and that's the blackmail. Now, we are coming up to a European bank stress test across Europe, and the Irish banks the rumour is that the Irish banks won't be able to survive the stress test, and maybe this is why maybe the reset is going to take place, because to avoid this stress test for the European banks right across the board. Now, I would say to people, as I say, this date, the 20th of July, has been banded around. The BRICS countries are going to have their IMF, or their version of the IMF, online, starting with, I think they pumped in 100 billion, starting on the 16th of July or in around that time. So it's just kind of coincidental that you have Christine Lagarde talking about numerology in 7, or the month of, month July 2014, month of July is the 7th month. Then you have the BRICS countries IMF system coming online on the 16th, and all of a sudden they're talking about the 20th. Now, we have a stress test, as I say, we'll be part of the stress test in Europe, as will the UK banks. And I'm just wondering, if the banks are lending money out, or if they will lend money out on a ratio, fractional reserve banking, then surely before the stress test takes place, it'd be in the interest of everybody to take their money out, which means that their ability to have enough funds to sustain their debts would kind of wipe them out and make things worse, by my estimations and my understanding. Now, I'm no economist or financial expert, but the whole idea, they can only lend out a percentage of what's in savings from the savers. So if people were to take the money out, like having a kind of run on the bank, take your money out before the stress test takes place, so that it gives them less capital to be able to deal with, or less capital to, loan out money to. I don't know about, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, anything that they do is going to not benefit us and probably make it worse on the other side. So stress test is going to make us feel stressful. If there's got a test, then there's likely to be some kind of terrorist attack that's going to happen at the same time, so-called terrorist attack. Oh, look, while we're doing the stress test, look what happened. Somebody blew up the central bank or blew up the Bank of America or somewhere, or, some old building that they didn't want in the end, in the first place. And they'll find some way of pinning an excuse for a complete financial collapse on it. That's my that's my cynical take on it now. I'm just not hopeful anymore about anything that anybody from a bank currently is doing. I'm completely cynical of, and it's bound to be worse.
Well, Pastor Lindsay Williams, when he came on, the two things that kind of resonate with us, what he said is, people who are struggling won't rebel because they're struggling. They won't have the money. And he said, when the system goes down, he said, the currency that you have will have a value for about 3 weeks, and then it'll be worth nothing. And you can't eat money. So he said the best thing to do is get the money out and, buy resources. We were talking about it last night on the United We Strike Marathon. You have to have shelter, heat and food. They're the important things, because if the proverbial hits the van, we're going to need communities. People are going to need to get together to protect themselves. That's just the way it's going to be if it gets that bad. And we had another guest on who's now since passed away. Do you remember that chap we had? The financial chap. Remember his name?
No.
He was.
It escapes me at the moment.
He worked in counterintelligence and spoke 6 languages, and he worked in finance. And he was saying, look, he said, don't worry about the West Coast gas reserves. He said, worry about your family and what's going to happen if the proverbial hits the fan. Now, there's a lot going on, but we have a few questions in, so I'm going to pass you up to Steve if you want to throw them out there, Steve.
Yeah, JP, question in from Mick from Liffey Sound FM. Mick's wondering, do you put any credence yourself into what anything that Ben Fulford may be saying?
Ben Fulford, for many years, has been saying some very interesting things that have expressed information that I have no idea whether it's true or not. And that's always the thing with Ben Fulford. He's pulling stuff out that you couldn't possibly know unless you were somehow deeply involved in the whole process yourself. So we have to take his word for it. So what credence I give to him? Well, yeah, like I said, unless anybody else has got information that is further in the background to what Fulford says, we're going to have to just take his word for it. And I'm like we say, we always have to. I have a kind of mental thing that is like a yes, no, and maybe box. Things that are definitely true, things that are definitely false, and then there are things that can't be proven as yet. However, and I have to say that box is probably the biggest one, and there is each one is associated with a figure who is the key to that box. And there's things that David Icke has said, there's things that Benjamin Fulford has said, there's things that Sean David Morton said, there's things that all these different people have said, none of which you know for certain. But when you get other pieces of data that come in from completely separate angles, provable separate angles, not just like somebody saying, oh yeah, I heard this, but proper insider information, and they know where they got it from and they can take it all the way back to that source. Until we have no idea what Ben is saying. Some things that he says sound really nice. I've been reading Fulford for 6 years, a long time. I like him. As a person, he seems earnest. He doesn't seem crazy, and he's not trying to persuade anybody. There's a certain attitude that somebody has when they're trying to make you believe something, And the attitude that he has is like, well, this is what I've heard. Take it or leave it. I'm not going to try and push it. And to me, that's more credential. That's more credential than somebody says, now this is really true, and you got to go and you got and save your family and run away and hide in the hills, and this is what I'm doing. That just sounds like propaganda. But he's sat in Japan. He's been in Tokyo since Fukushima went off. He's not run scared or anything like that. So that's why I give him a bit of credence. But that's not to say that whatever he says is going to be true.
No, I totally agree. I mean, we've heard a lot of people say that their belief is that he's a disinfo agent. But you don't, as you say, you don't know, because some of the stuff that he puts out, he's probably the only one saying it, and maybe until we hear other people saying it, it's hard to know. But I think some of what he says would definitely go into, as Jim Mars referred to it last week, and is your file in the head, which is pretty much what you were saying, your yes, no, and maybe. We won't know until we get there. But no, I think from what we've heard, like in the past, a lot of what he says, you'd have to kind of look at it objectively and say, and at least consider it rather than just dismiss it, because we don't know, but he could be on the money. Okay. Obviously, by your silence, you agree with everything I say.
Are you okay? Your end technically?
Yeah, I'm okay. It's just that I'm having to I'm zimming between here and the kitchen just
on
now.
the Zimmer frame, yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to go back on that one?
Not really, no. I was just filling time. I knew I could see you going to the kitchen. I said, I'll fill in a bit of time. He's obviously making a sandwich. Well, come here. What do you reckon about another question in here? I'm going to skip through them in different order. But Yellowstone, what's your thoughts on Yellowstone going up at the moment?
Well, the other day I posted a post that I got, which was, the road is melting in Yellowstone.
Yeah,
saying that,
right. Yeah.
That is not good news.
No.
A few weeks ago, I saw one, and people were saying, well, they do that all the time, but that there were bison running away. And that's the kind of classic thing that you get with the beginning of an earthquake. You get bison running away, and you see the animals running. And I'm not sure if that was disinfo or not. But I watched a TV show many years ago called Super Volcano, which is all about what would happen.
Is that the British one? The BBC one.
It was a two-parter. I can't remember if it was BBC or because there were obviously people with American accents.
Yeah, that was very good.
You may have seen the same thing.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, it's actually online on YouTube. You can watch it.
Oh, talking also of online is personal services. I looked it up just now. Personal services is available on YouTube. Just type in personal services. There's a playlist. It's been on for a while, so it's like the old YouTube style of one 15-minute chunk, or 10-minute chunks. So
yeah.
But yes, it's online there and available. Personal services. If anybody wants to watch that.
Have you seen it, JP? Have you seen it?
Yeah. Years ago, I remember it, but here's the thing, right? Okay, so I'm imagining that you guys are about the same age as me, and you were probably subject to the BBC in your youth, right?
Well, it depends how old you are.
I'm
old enough
53.
to know better.
Yeah,
well, 53.
Yeah,
no.
they're thereabouts. Well, not Steve.
Yeah.
Me and you.
So what I'm saying is that you'll have been exposed to Jim Will Fix It.
Yeah.
Dave Lee Travis.
Yeah.
Kenny Everett. You've been exposed to that. What is amazing is now to look back, because I was a kid, and a rather innocent kid at that. I was in a pretty cloistered, sheltered sort of background. So I had no idea what a paedophile was, or kiddie fiddling or anything like that, because everything was really straight down the line with my family situation. So I didn't know anything about this stuff, but we realize that Savile was a fixer, right? He was a fixer. People, people like that are fixers. They're the people that the posh people go when they need something done that is not particularly pleasant. They get the fixer in, so if people need drugs, he'll go and get drugs. If people need prostitutes, he'll go and get prostitutes. If people want children, he'll go and get children. And that was what he did. And that's why he was Sir Jimmy Savile. That was the service that he gave to the crown, which is to procure children. And now we're looking at all the other sirs, but looking back and we see Jim'll Fix It. His TV show was called Jim'll Fix It. And just to see all of these titles, and now we're looking at, there was an old Not the 9 O'Clock News sketch. I don't know if you remember this one.
I've seen that, yeah. Rolf Harris one, is it?
With the Rolf Harris thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how much more of the TV that we were exposed to actually was telling the story that we didn't actually see it because it was made fun. It was made into some sort of jolly comedy thing.
Yeah, exactly. And of course we didn't realize it at the time. We because we seen it as comedy, but it is surprising. But yeah, and Ireland is no different. I mean, in all honesty, it's not just the UK. We can be guaranteed, and I'm pretty much 100% sure that it's going on over here. We don't seem to have any whistleblowers as of yet coming out and telling people what's going on, or if there's any politicians or businessmen or anybody like that, people in entertainment involved in doing things. There's nothing, nobody's come forward yet, but the option is always there for whistleblowers. If they do want to contact us and tell us their story, then we'd be more than happy to have a chat with them and see what we can do. But it's amazing. Now, let's just open up what's going on. So we talked about Yellowstone. And if you go to YouTube, there are people who are reporting on Yellowstone and what's going on. And there's things going on there, and the air tremors and earthquakes going on over there that they haven't had before. So there's a massive concern. As you say, JP, that documentary is very good. I watched that documentary. It's very good about, Yellowstone going off. As if they knew that it was due. Oh, we have a call. Hang on a minute. We bring the caller in. Hang on. Hi, caller. You're on air with OYM. Do you have a question for JP? Hello?
Oh, okay.
Obviously, you don't have a question. That was probably Enda Kenny.
Right. That was Pat Rabbit. Okay, yeah, maybe the caller just didn't want to go live. If you want to call again, I'll pick up the phone. I'll talk to you off air. Okay. Do you have any more questions there, Steve?
Yeah,
there's one from Trent Duval. And he or she is wondering, I'm guessing it's he, JP, what do you reckon on Angela Merkel being the granddaughter of Hitler? Do you reckon there's any truth in that?
Merkel. Actually, we have this image of Hitler, and he looks a lot like David Cameron. It's that soft, puffy face. Angela Merkel, and he could have had lots of children, He could have had a whole bunch of children, and maybe some of them are sitting in a test tube just now. And also, Savile could have had lots of children, since he was a serial molester. There might be lots of little Saviles running around.
Yeah,
that's a scary thought, isn't it?
It is a scary thought. It is a scary thought.
And here's the thing. Okay, so one of the other things is that Savile used to call his mother the Duchess, right?
Yeah.
That was his name for her. And what he didn't say is why he called her the Duchess. And I believe, and again, this is part of the conversation I had with Thomas Sheridan. I believe that what he's actually referring to is Savile is indeed bloodline. He's bloodline of the Illuminati, and that he was the child or grandchild of illegitimate progeny of the local toffs. Because they do what they do, and sometimes they get pregnant. Oh God, what they would do with these babies, some other babies is another thing. Look, it all ties in with satanic ritual, and it also ties in. And this is another thread that I've been exploring, is the whole, the idea of selling your soul to the devil. Like Bob Dylan has been saying many times, man, I sold my soul to the chief, the commander-in-chief, the big man, the big chief. Satan himself, yeah. And, Satan and Illuminati are the same. When people say ourselves and that they're doing the Illuminati thing, it seems to be the same thing. So we can assume that if you sell your soul to the devil, the middlemen are the Illuminati. These are the guys who actually do the nitty-gritty of supplying you with the things that you want. And that's the thing they call the Rain Man. The Rain Man rains gifts. He rains, bestows blessings, raining blessings. Yeah. That's what the rain is. And Savile again used to do that. Remember, he was always giving things away. Yeah, other people's stuff, but he was always giving. He was always giving things away.
Yeah, and things that they didn't want. JP, we've just been in contact with James, and he's had some technical problems out there, but he's online at the moment. So what we'd like to do is try and get James on if we can, if you don't mind. So what we'll do is we'll go to a quick musical break, and we'll just be back after this and see what we can organise. So just stay with us there for a minute.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
Okay, we're back. Now we just got James online there. He was experiencing some technical problems. His end is probably the New World Order or the Illuminati doing what they're doing. They don't want James to talk to us, but it's fantastic that we have him on. James, good evening to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Thanks a lot for coming on. As you say, these things happen. We've suffered technical problems as well, inverted commas, and we wonder why it happens. But listen, thanks a lot for, getting online and coming on to OYM Radio. Much appreciated. For people who don't know who James Gilliland is, do you want to give us a 5-minute? I know you've done an awful lot in your life, but if you want to give us a quick synopsis of who you are and just to let our listeners know your background.
Well, I'm kind of like an intuitive visionary, and I've written 3 books, Reunion with Source and Becoming Gods and The Ultimate Soul Journey. And then I also am the founder of ESETI, which is it's like a spiritual retreat center that when you really do the work and you reach a certain level of consciousness, it seems like these higher dimensional beings find you. So we took a different approach to working with ET. We actually, rather than chase them down and try to get pictures of them and prove they exist, we actually invited them, through spiritual practices to come join us, and they have, so we've just got incredible footage, of these ships and photographs and videos, and we've probably got, I don't know how, tens of thousands of eyewitnesses that have come to the ranch, and just about anybody that's who's who in the business has been to the ranch and have seen the ships. There's a few holdouts, and we always figured they fit into that planned opposition program, that don't want, this to be known, or that contact is happening now. It's not something in the past or something going to happen in the future. It's happening now. But
and you have been attacked, haven't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've I don't like to go there, but it's a reality that comes with it. I've had a couple bullets whiz by me and brake lines cut and lug nuts taken off my car, and a lot of black helicopter activity, where I think that's probably why we just had to have our lines totally redone here, because they were burned. They were pulsed, probably from a black helicopter, a satellite. I don't know where it came from, but somebody pulsed our things, and I had a home broadcasting unit, and that's like smoked on the inside. So it comes with the territory. I just I would be surprised if that didn't happen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. You're obviously doing something right. That's how you know when they're getting back at you. Now, James, you've been doing fantastic work. I've been looking at some of the interviews you've done. The YouTube footage of the crafts over the ESETI Ranch, we've actually put up on our Facebook page. I hope you didn't mind us doing that, because it's unbelievable until you actually see the footage. And we hear you in the background. And for people who kind of still have this disbelief that, we're the only people on a planet in the universe and everything else, ETs don't exist, they really want to look at this footage, or if they can afford it, go out to your ranch and see the evidence for themselves.
Yeah, we just had a whole group here. It's called Phoenix Rising, and it's a school, and they're keeping all these kids open, into other realities and things of that nature. And they brought all these kids up, and the parents came and everything. And this weekend was just amazing. And we had 2 massive ships fly over. Unfortunately, I didn't get footage of them because all the equipment was being used by the kids, so they could see with the night vision and all the other stuff, so they could see the ships and the orbs and things. But we had 2 events that were just undeniable, just massive ships flying over that powered up like 6 times, and they're bright pink, orange, and gold, and some of the people in the group were captain, airline pilots and things like that, and they actually went on my show and testified as to what they saw. And they said this is not anything of known origin.
And how do you discern? Because I know one of the interviews when you were talking, you said that you know when it's actually not ET, but it's actually air equipment, aircrafts.
Yeah. Well, the first one is if it has a strobe on it and, red and green running lights or red and blue running lights, it's most likely an aircraft. That's a dead giveaway there. The other one is that the ships throw off a whole different light, and most of them throw off like starlight. It's full spectrum light, whereas our planes have like either halogen or sodium or something of that nature. It's kind of a dirty light coming off them, even when they have their landing lights on. It's very obvious when you look at the light coming off of them. And the other thing is about the consciousness. When you scan the ship, you can feel whether or not there's conscious beings on them. And so when we have even our back engineered stuff flies over, you can feel the energy of the ship, and you don't get the signature of the higher beings that comes with the ship. It's like when the Pleiadians come, everybody gets really giddy, you get really high. And it's kind of exciting, and you can really feel the presence of these other beings. When these other ships come over, you don't feel anything. There's nothing.
Brilliant. And the footage is fantastic, what you've taken. I know people have probably said this to you time and time again, and there's people out there with closed minds who just don't really open up to this. What would you say what do you say to these people? Are you just going to say, well, look, maybe it's not their time to open up to these things? What's your approach to that?
Well, what's interesting is that if they had any science background, they'd realize that you actually see with your brain. And your eyes are picking up billions of bits of information, but your brain chooses out of that information what's going to be your reality. So, for them to say, well, I'll believe it when I see it is incorrect, because you have to be open to it before you're even going to see it. It's almost like the Columbus, they didn't see the ships for a long time until the shaman showed them that they were there. So because it wasn't part of their reality. And there's a lot of science around that. Where they raised cats, in a room where there was all vertical bars and another group in all horizontal bars. And when they put a cat that was raised in the vertical room, in the horizontal room, it couldn't even recognize the other bars. It wasn't part of its reality, and they just kept slamming into them, like they weren't even there. But, there's a lot of research around that. So with a lot of them, I just tell people, here's the evidence, here's the witnesses, here's the photographs, here's the videos, make out of it what you want. It's a plate. If you want to partake of it, partake of it. If you don't, I'm really fine with that too, because I don't have any attachment to their getting it. That's their choice. You can't trespass on free will. But it's I had an investigator come up here and just said, if you're not for real, I'm going to debunk you. And I started laughing at him, and he said, what's so funny? And I said, it's not really between you and me, it's between you and them, as to what happens. And I told him to pull up a chair and go sit in the field, make your peace with them, talk to them telepathically. And I said, they'll get it. And
that's right, and you did Paranormal State as well, I believe. I've seen that on the XBMC network, and I think you might be able to get it on YouTube. There's an American program called Paranormal State where they actually paid a visit to your ranch, and you went out there, and I believe they have evidence of crafts going over, and they were pretty excited as well. Now, the one thing, James, which I have to admire you for, and one of the things you said on one of your interviews is that, spiritually, we all need to kind of grow spiritually and be aware of, who we are and the whole spiritual nature of things. And one of the things I've always said regarding the spirituality is that you have to understand the negatives as well as the positives. And there's too many people involved in spiritualism which just say, oh, well, I don't want to get involved in that. That's a negative. I don't want to see that. And I know you're adamant in saying, no, you have to do both. And I admire you for saying that because I totally agree with you. Can you expand on that a little?
Well, in a lot of teachings, like if you go over to Indonesia or things like that, people say, I want to learn the white magic. And they said, no, you need to learn the black magic too, because if black magic is being used on you or others, you need to know about it and how to deal with it. And so it's similar to that. But, there's an old saying, you bury your head like an ostrich in the sand, your butt's exposed, to whoever wants to do whatever they want with it. And it just doesn't work. And enlightenment means to be in knowledge of all of it, all the sides of the coin, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you want to call it, the future, the past, the present, everything. It doesn't mean just, pigeonholing, I'm just in the now and I'm not going to look at anything else, or I'm going to practice yoga because, there's no ETs in yoga. But if people look at the ancient Vedic scriptures, they see the Vyamanas and the gods, the ships of the gods and the great wars that were fought with intense technologies. And it's every ancient religion, if you really delve into it and go back, you'll find out there were, the Anunnaki or the gods or extreme technologies here. And there was a lot of misuse of those technologies. Exactly.
And whereabouts are we, just kind of catching up, whereabouts are we now? Because we see globally what's going on the planet is just unreal. Even here in Ireland, there's so much going on. There's so much austerity and suicides and repossessions, foreclosures, and people not having food, can't afford food. I mean, this is happening globally, along with what's going on in Gaza and all them. Where do you see this going? What's your inside information on this?
Well, all those things, those wars and the false flag things and all those things are going on just to keep people divided and separate and, to keep the war industry going and the military-industrial complex and things like that. If people really look at the driving forces behind this nonsense, like this Al-Qaeda, we call it Al-CIA, is what we call it. Because, you're going, wait a second, didn't they blow up the Twin Towers? But now we're funding them, but now they're our enemy, but now they're our friends, and, what's going on here and who's actually running the show. So, and it's really all that stuff is being done by, a secret society when you get down to it. All these major false flag operations and everything boils back to one group, with a lot of little splinter factions of it. But the good thing about that is what they've been telling me, and a lot of people have been feeling it. We just went through a huge energy shift where a lot of energy came through the planet, and we're right in the middle of another one. We're about a week into it, and it's going to be about a 4-week shift that's happening with a massive stream of energy coming in from galactic plane or the core. And when that happens, the sun reacts to it, and it throws off solar flares and coronal mass ejections, and that affects the bioelectric fields, around the humans and around the Earth. And, it's creating shifts in consciousness, DNA changes. People are going through emotional outbursts and processing any frustrations or angers or things they're holding on to. It's really targeting tyranny. The people that are focused on controlling and dominating others and are constricted are not doing well with these energies because it's hitting them like a brick. So what we're seeing is the old grid collapsing and going down, and the people that are aligned with the old grid holding on to it, their empires are imploding. And we're in that process, and we're moving into unity consciousness, and it just keeps, those waves are exponential. They keep getting stronger, and they build on the last wave. And I just say resistance is futile. A lot of these games and the chaos that's being created to disrupt and and divert our attention is not going to work. It's going to be very short-lived.
Is that what we're seeing now? Is this the New World Order struggling? They're like a trapped rat, and they're just fighting and doing everything they can. They're throwing everything out there to try and stop what's happening, but it's inevitable that what's going to happen is going to happen, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Exactly. It's a force no man can stop. It's part of an evolutionary cycle that we're in. As much as they try, their best option right now is just to shift their consciousness and their energies towards the awakening and healing process and get behind that. That's the real Messiah is getting these guys to shift and stop the nonsense. That's when the things really happen, is when this old order just falls apart and starts waking up and moving in the right direction. And there are people within those societies that are awake. There's, the Illuminati has two aspects to it. They have an enlightened side, and then they have a very dark, controlling, manipulating side. And unfortunately, the enlightened side has kind of taken a step back, and let the other one run its course.
Mm.
But they're going to have to get busy too and clean up their mess, because the higher dimensional beings have stepped in and said, look, you need to clean house. If not, you're going to suffer the same consequences as the ones that have broken away from universal law.
And is this the move? Is this the move from 3D into 4 or 5D? Is this the energy change?
It definitely, that's where we're going. And there's a lot of scientific evidence around that, about the changing of the carbon atom and all the DNA being activated and all these other things that are going on. We're definitely shifting and moving from 3D into a whole different grid. The grid's already there. It's in place, and the 3D grid is collapsing.
Okay, we have questions come in. I'll pass you over to Steve, my co-host, and we'll get JP in a minute. I'm sure JP has one or two questions as well. Steve.
Alan, James, question here from Chris. Chris is wondering, with your research and what you're seeing, have you ever encountered any negative ETs, and what is your take on the alleged greys?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One thing I wanted to say, I think it's totally irresponsible to say there are no negative ETs, and there are people out there saying that, because there are regenerate ETs that have their own agenda. And there are some very negative beings, they call it the Archon network, that actually feed off the pain and the suffering and the confusion and separation game that's going on here. And so it's very important to realize, I treat them with respect. I know who they are. I know what they're capable of. But I also know I have contacts with higher beings that can take care of that, as well as my own God connection. I can stand in my own self-authority with these beings. And I have run across some regenerate greys and some reptilian beings and some serpent beings that are very nasty, but I know there are beings that we can call on. The ancient ones are returning, like the protectors of the gods are coming in, and the benevolent Anunnaki are returning, and there's a big house cleaning going on along with the Pleiadians, the Andromedans, the Orion Council of Light, and the Syrian energy. The feline beings are appearing. They're coming in right now. It's just a major cleanup process, and we're right in the middle of that.
Sorry, JP, just 1 second. Patrick asked us a couple of weeks ago, James, about sylphs, or he told us information about sylphs. Now, we've never heard of them before. It never came up on our radar. And just real quick, I'm just wondering, have you ever heard of those as well? Sylphs, S-Y-L-P-H-S.
Yeah, definitely. They're helping out a lot with the benevolent ETs as well. It's cleaning up a lot of the chemtrail messes and the other stuff that's going on in the energetic patterns that are disharmonious. They're assisting us in a great way. If we did not have that assistance, we'd all be, zombie robot consumers, without a clue as to what's going on, and probably sick and ill, and we probably would have lost, a good 50% of our population, if not more already, if they haven't intervened. Yeah. So it's like a tug of war going on. It's like just as the negative is pulling in their stunts, the positive is coming forward too and diverting a lot of it.
Okay, good stuff. JP, I apologise for cutting across you there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, James. How are you doing, mate?
Doing great.
Well, so there are various factions that are involved with this war. Now, I'd like you to, because I'm just an ordinary bloke. I have no personal connections with ETs or anything like that. So what I get is what I get from people who have come on my show and what I hear. So let's see what your take is. The latest news is that part of this whole dark cabal came from some dark Andromedans. Have you heard about this little faction?
Yeah, I don't think that's correct, but everybody has their reality. The Andromedans are mythologically known as archangels, and most of them are like 8 to 10 foot tall beings, and they have magnetized light bodies. There are some other Andromedans that are actually blue skinned, and they actually have like hieroglyphs on them, or they're almost like tattooed with spiritual symbols and things. But those are extremely benevolent. And actually, the Andromedan Council is the ones that are that all the other ones go to, for advice, because they've already transcended, all material need, and they have magnetized light bodies and live in a holographic light universe. So I don't really prescribe to that. I've never met a negative Andromedan, there is a lot of possibilities out there, but from my experience, that isn't what I've experienced.
Okay, thank you. And the next one is what I was talking to Stephen D. Kelly the other day. I don't know if you've come across him yet, but he was a laser engineer through the 70s and has done many of the laser work for for the industry, let's call them, over the last few years. So he's got some inside knowledge, and he was talking about that the main problem that we're in is that our governments, our dark cabals, have sided with negative Pleiadians, and that they're trying to put bad press on the good Pleiadians to make them look like bad aliens. If you get this. So is that part of the scenario that, as you see it as well?
Not really. That's not what I've experienced. But the old saying, the mind in which you seek is the mind in which you connect. So if people are really focused on that side of things, a lot of times they tie into it. There could be some ancient Pleiadians that are doing time travel that may be coming forward that could be possibly, negative, because they had their experiences in the past where they had their wars and things of that nature. But for the better part, that is a very, they're on top of it. The benevolent Pleiadians are here in mass right now, and they're very much on top of any of the negative program going on. And they're dealing mainly with the regenerate ETs, the regenerate greys and reptilian and some of these serpent beings, and they're cleaning this up. They're cleaning these energies out. But most of the time when you hear any of the information Pleiadian, or you hear the Andromedan Council of Light, or you hear that, it's always usually benevolent. It's they're very advanced. Now, I've seen that a lot of people will allow reptilians to come in. They don't use tools, and techniques to heal unseen negative influences, and they may be trying to do the right thing and doing well, and they're on the right track, and then all of a sudden these guys slip in and give them some misinformation, and they may think they're talking to a benevolent ET, but it might be a reptilian, and so a lot of this Andromedan Pleiadian negative stuff program is really created by the reptilians who don't want people to align with those energies, to keep them from connecting in. I know a lot of people that are attached with the industry also have attachments with the reptilians or the negative greys, and they may not even know it, and they seem to come hand in hand. So on one level they may think they're doing the right thing, but on another level they may be duped.
Can I just add, one of the things you mentioned, On your meditation, you were talking about people in meditation actually changing frequency and disappearing. And Drumbelow Melchizedek also talks about this meditation called, I think it's 90-degree turn, where he said these people have gone off into the fourth dimension and it's a one-way ticket. I mean, the people that you're teaching or you have meditation, where are they going if they're disappearing?
Yeah, they're going in. They're just, well, the thing is about trying to disappear. It's not that hard, really, because all you have to do is just be a little bit out of phase with this frequency or this timeline. And to do that, there are spiritual practices that we do. One's Qigong. It's a very, very ancient practice that actually goes back to the stars. But when you do this practice, we have people that you can see right through them, and you can see the chair behind them, and sometimes they'll vanish and then pop back in again. And that happens on a regular basis here. But it's not really that hard to do that when we understand our bodies really aren't, mass. Even Einstein said that, it's mass is just an illusion, albeit a very persistent one.
But we all vibrate on a frequency, and if you change the frequency, that's probably what you're doing.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what these techniques do. There are ways of engaging your own higher self to raise your frequencies. But we also teach at the very beginning of any kind of meditation class or practice, we clear the space and we make sure there aren't any unseen negative influences. And I think that's a major problem with a lot of groups out there is they don't use discernment, they don't clear their space, and they allow just anything to jump in, and you can get into serious trouble. And there are a lot of people that hold very high positions, even in the UFO community, that are boasting that there are no negative ETs and there's nothing negative out there in the universe. And I always tell them, I said, well, look at what's going on the planet right now. I said, there's some very inhuman things going on a mass scale. So if these are inhuman actions, what do you think is behind them? Probably inhuman beings, that care nothing for creation or life, on this planet, and actually have a disdain for it. So,
well, it's a prison planet, as we've heard time and time again.
Yeah, as you move up the vibration continuum, as you move up the ladder of hierarchy of power and control, you end up with unseen negative influences. And people do rituals. They do dark rituals to hook up with these beings for power and wealth and fame. And that's a dead end because they end up owning you and pretty much taking your life force. And it always ends up, with a short-term gain and long-term karmic consequence.
Exactly. Now, tell me something about, what about the likes of what Von Braun said about Project Bluebeam? Because I think, personally, if ET's, decloaked, because we keep hearing that there's millions or thousands or millions of crafts around the planet waiting for maybe the pole shift. I don't know whether you believe that scenario, or planet, Nibiru, Planet X. I don't know whether you believe that. But if they decloaked, then surely the game would be up. Everybody would just down tools and go, okay, that's it. That's sorted the problem out.
Yeah. And I would love for that to happen. I mean, they have to operate under universal law, and they can't force themselves on people. There is a prime directive, but the problem with that is that the other negative entities don't operate under universal law or the prime directive. So now that's kind of thrown out the window because they realize they do have to kind of get their hands dirty and start being a little more hands-on here to deal with the negative.
It's like a gun ban, isn't it? It's like you make guns illegal. Criminals don't care whether something's legal or not. Oh no, I'm not going to buy a gun because it's illegal. Really, sorry, but why play by the rules if the other team are not playing by the rules?
Exactly.
Or we create new rules that put a different slant on the conflict itself, so that instead of it becoming a conflict, they fall into their own juices, as it were.
Exactly. It's basically what I see is that, we do live in an action-reaction world, where consciousness creates reality. We magnetize people and events to us according to our consciousness. So when they turn the juice up, the karma is also accelerated, or the reaction to their actions, and also the truth surfaces. And so we're in the middle of that process where it's imploding, the karmic reactions imploding on these people, on the dark hearts, and also all their like even Jesus said that, no rock should be left unturned, and all the iniquities will be shouted from the rooftops, and that saying right alone is basically what's happening right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that, the positive ETs have decided to jump in, because it needs to be sorted. Steve, you've got more questions there?
I do. James, Karen Quinn Tostado, a long-time listener and a friend of OYM, also in the US of A. Karen's wondering, what about Fukushima? Weren't aliens were supposed to stop any nuclear bombs, and technically, with the nuclear radiation, the meltdown in Fukushima is not technically a nuclear bomb?
Yeah. I feel the same way. I haven't been really happy about allowing that situation. They have been screaming at us for years, since the 40s and 50s. Do not play with that technology. Do not use that technology. And we've totally ignored them. And not so much the everyday human, the powers that be have ignored. And we've allowed them to continue to build these things. And even after Fukushima, our leadership over here has already contracted to build more of the same type of nuclear reactors. So it's kind of an insanity. It's like, they've been trying to get us to stop from doing this stuff, and we just keep going. And almost the only way we learn is through experience, it seems like. And so until we have a really negative experience, do we stop playing with these technologies? And I think that's where they're at with it. They're saying, okay, when you gain the wisdom from this experience, we'll step in and help. But as long as you're still building new ones and you're allowing your leadership to make these idiotic decisions for you, what are we going to do? We can't step in and force you to wake up and heal and stop this nonsense. And so it is really tricky. It's a...
Okay.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it would probably take something like the whole war being blown to smithereens before we learn a lesson, because it seems like if people are trying to tell, it's like over here in Ireland, you could have a sign saying that the paint is wet, but somebody will still touch it just to see. So, do we really learn lessons?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's like a spiral. It's an ascending spiral. We kind of do the same thing over and over again, and eventually we get it. And that's kind of human nature. But I think people are there's like a fail-safe mechanism, which is the soul that's being activated, and people are waking up fast. And so, I mean, a lot of us, that awoke early are just going, my God, how long is this going to go? And I know with me, I've been screaming at them, like, can we just clean this up and stop the nonsense and clean up Fukushima and things like that? And my heart goes out to the whales and the dolphins and the sea life that's being polluted, and the humans too that are eating that. But it's like it's kind of like, you have universal law. How much can you intervene? My point is to them is like, well, the earth, she's got her soul. She has her agenda. And all these plants and animals here also, are part of creation. These guys are totally warring on creation, and although a lot of humanity are just willing participants in this and still supporting this, at what point does the other life have rights, and need protection and things like that? So.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think they have to match what the negative ETs are doing, or the negative entities are doing with the positive ETs and energies need to do the same thing, because they're just going to ignore the prime directive. As Steve said with the guns, criminals don't give a damn whether it's illegal or legal. And I think with everything that's going on at the moment, I mean, do you have a timeline which they've given you, or a rough idea? Because obviously with everything that's going on in Gaza at the moment and globally, and the Fukushima, and just so much going on. We had David Hugo Boylan last week, and I kind of refer to what's going on at the moment as Sodom and Gomorrah, because that's what's going on with all the pedophilia and everything else being exposed. I mean, have they given you any timelines not sticking to dates, but We know that we mentioned earlier in the show about Christine Lagarde talking about the numerology and the hidden talk or speech that she did, number 7, and they're talking about July 20th because of the BRICS countries. Their IMF version of the European Bank is or the International Monetary Fund is coming online on the 16th of July, and they're saying that there's going to be a financial reset. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I have heard a lot about that, and it's kind of like, most advanced ETs, they don't have a monetary system. It's not even, don't really care about that program. I mean, we're a lot more focused on that, and it does affect people. I don't focus a lot on that. I know they're doing all kinds of shenanigans there, and there's power struggles, and there's new groups that want to come in and take over the monetary system, but you're going to be enslaved to that group, but it's a new group, and they're the nicer group, and it just goes on and on and on. I think we need to just get rid of this whole program, go back to republic and print our own money, and then we'd be totally abundant. But we also have to shift in consciousness and get out of this competition program and the separation game. And, once we do that, we'll accelerate light years. The Pleiadians, what they told me is that they take their children at a very young age up on a beam ship and they power it up. And they have a near-death experience. They become a light principle. And so they're totally one with the universe at that time. And then they bring them back and they know their sole purpose, and they educate them so they can excel in that area. And they also give them a rounded education, but once they excel in that area, they know they're connected to the whole, and so they give back to the whole. And so their society advanced light years by doing that. And if we adopted that same principle, I mean, we don't have the beam ships. Well, maybe we do in the black projects, but
which you're not going to tell us.
We don't really need the beam ships. We just need to start cooperating and work together and start living a more spiritual, wholesome life, and things will turn around.
Well, one of the things that we've been told, and I've said before in the show, is that we have to move away from ego and ignorance and move towards humility and wisdom, because that's the only way, that's their path in life. And to be more spiritually aware and service to others, that's where we have to go.
Exactly. And it's sad because that's what we keep running up against, even in the UFO community and a lot of the spiritual community. There's a thing called spiritual ego, and there's a lot of separation and lack of cooperation in those fields, which is sad.
Yeah, spiritual jealousy and spiritual snobbery, which is the one I came across over here. I couldn't believe it. It's amazing when you meet people who say they're spiritual and they're more materialistic than somebody who isn't. It's
oh yeah, and they usually have more judgment and more. It's pretty crazy, but I mean, there's people that have written books that we're all going to hold hands and ascend at 2012, and they said, oh, I'm in the 5th dimension now, but they're back and they're on the podium, and all of these things are going. And I just go, when are people going to start using critical thinking and just base common sense and observe all these claims and all these programs and just, kind of hold their feet to the fire, step up in their own self-authority and go, wait a second, this doesn't add up, what you're saying here. And,
but
there's all these programs going on where people are being told what they want to hear, not what they need to hear, or they're being told that the ETs are going to come and save everybody and beam you up, and you can max out your credit cards because you're not going to need it anymore. And, all these programs out there, these super funds and St. Germain funds and everything else. And, I've been watching these since the 70s, and none of them pan out, and people are still waiting.
We just have to save ourselves. That's what we're going to have to do.
Exactly. It's very disempowering because people all are waiting for some savior or something outside themselves that's going to come in and straighten everything out, until we wake up and take back our power and realize we are the ones, we've been waiting for. It's just not going to happen.
Exactly. Well, that's where we need to go. I think, as you know, James, when people are in their comfort zone, they just don't want to break over until something deharmonizes their life. And that's when they start waking up and asking questions. Until then, they just stay in their comfort zone.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that were very happy, with their widescreen TV and their SUV and their cubicle, and going to work every day. And now they've lost their jobs. They're out on the street, and basically, they don't even have money for the beer and pizza anymore. And they're having a big rude awakening that wait a second, all this stuff these people were talking about is true now, and now it's personal for them. And what I see is there's going to be a huge movement now because they have made it personal to the masses.
They have.
And people are just fed up. And eventually there's going to be I'm hoping there's an evolution and a conscious revolution versus, I hope it doesn't get nasty, but it may in some areas.
Okay, we're going to have to finish up, but we have a quick question from a caller. So we're just going to put the caller on. Not yet, Steve. And we're going to put the caller on, quick question, and then we'll wrap things up. Hang on a minute there. Right, Patrick, you have a question for James.
Yeah, James, I just wondered if I could quickly explain what I saw, whether you have a similar sighting over your ranch. Basically, a big orange light in the sky, it moved and then was gone. And then another sighting I saw was like red, dark, round, I suppose, was firing out beams of light, and that just hung around for a while, and then moved and disappeared. Just trying to explain them. I just wondered if you have similar sightings like that over your ranch.
Yeah, actually, we just had that happen this weekend, and we actually brought some airline pilots and everything on the BBS radio that I have As You Wish Talk Radio on BBS. And we brought them on to talk about what they witnessed here. So that's a major event. And some of those are huge Palladian ships, and they're part of the Federation ships. And they're coming here now en masse, and they're doing a major cleanup. And they're going to need to be seen, in the work that they're doing. So I think it's just a matter of time, where all the naysayers and the media and the lamestream media, all that stuff, are going to have major egg on their face.
We're going to eventually see them. Okay, Patrick, that's great. Thanks for your call. We just have to wrap things up. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, we're going to have to wrap things up there because I know JP has his show to do as well. We're going to pass you, James, a big thank you for coming on. I know you had technical issues there. I think we're going to have to do a part 2 maybe in a few weeks' time if you're up for that. Because there's so much more that we have to talk about and get out there. But I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve, if you can do the wrap-up with James, his contact details, and JP, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay, Jeff, we'll go in order as you come on. So, JP, can you just give us your web address for anyone who wants to tune in and find out more information about you and the show?
Well, it's www.everbeyondradio.com. Ever Beyond is my show, which is in, 21? It's 2 hours time. Tonight I've got a guest, Carla Fox. She says that we don't have chakras, or we shouldn't have chakras. This is an interesting conversation. I've got a show coming up, Actually, can I be really, really sneaky? James, are you free for the next couple of hours? And you could feel free to say no immediately if you're busy. But if it's a quiet afternoon at the ranch, I've got some airspace, and if you'd like to have a chat, that'd be fantastic. But feel free to say no.
Well, we'll go to a musical break.
Yeah, if we could do that at a later time, I'd love to come on. I do have some counseling and some other things I need to attend to that I've already committed.
Okay, no problem, James. We're on Skype anyway. You use Skype?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll connect with you one Sunday afternoon. It'd be fantastic.
Brilliant.
Sounds great.
Okay, and
so thank you.
James, do you want to give us the details of your ranch and your website? You're doing fantastic work out there. Let people know how they can find you.
Okay, great. Yeah, if they go to www.eseti.org for the website, but if they really want to know what's going on at the ranch, they need to go to esetireservations@gmail.com. And that's where we have all the upcoming events listed. And we've got Laura Eisenhower coming up, Dr. Dream on the 25th, and holotropic breath work, and we got Michael Tellinger coming out, and a lot of major speakers are coming out to the ranch and doing some work. So the best way to do that is contact esetireservations@gmail.com, and they'll let you know about the upcoming events. We have ambassador training classes too, where we actually engage, the higher dimensional beings, and they bring their ships in. We have amazing experiences up here.
I will say to people, you want to check out the video. It's fantastic footage that James has taken there. It'll blow your mind, and I'm sure if you're out there, we'd love to have the money to do it. But James, again, thank you very much for coming on, and JP, thanks for coming on. We're just going to go off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
All right, thanks for having me on the show.
Just stay with us there for a minute, guys.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
Okay, another of Alan's collections, music, I don't know. No Doubt, Don't Speak. Never actually liked that record, but it was the first one to me hand. Yeah, I'm on a tidy of those 45s. These are a box of 45s here. Just put them on the old record player. Anyway,
that's 78s compared to
70.
the 45s.
78s? Oh, man.
Okay, we're just going to find out who's on with Vin after 9 o'clock. Next week we have part 2. We have John Anthony Hill, Mudeeb on for part 2 to find out more information about what John is up to, what he's doing, and obviously, things that are coming down the line. He's very. We want to find out about the Ark of the Covenant as well, and why he feels it's buried in. Buried in the Hill of Tara, apparently.
Apparently, yes.
And a few other things that are kind of going on as well. So because we didn't get a chance the last time we actually came on to talk about that. So we want to talk about that. We want to talk about Middle East as well, and just his take on what he sees coming on and coming down the line. We will aim to get James on again, and we do a full interview. It's one of them things. It's technical issues, and what can you do? What else can you do? But that's really the news. That's what's going on at the moment. There's nothing else on the plate. We are working on a few things ourselves here on OYM. When we have more information, we will let you know regarding what's going on from a local level regarding water meters and the evictions and helping people with evictions, and something that we've been doing kind of in the background as well. We get emails and stuff like that. But okay, we're going to let you go. We're going to pass over to Vin. So everybody, this is Alan James. Take care of yourself. Have a safe week. Hopefully next week, by the way, is our anniversary. 4 years on the radio next week.
You're going to say 4 years married or something.
4 years on the radio on OYM has been going next week, so we'll be probably talking about that and putting a celebration in. We'll
be locked.
Next Sunday is the 20th of July, so this week's going to be very poignant. So keep an ear to the ground and watch out what's going on with Christine Lagarde and all that stuff, because we don't know for sure. Check out the BRICS countries who are supposed to be setting up their own version of the IMF on the 16th of July, apparently. But if you hear anything, as usual, email us, let us know, and we'll send out the information. For myself, Alan James, take care, and we'll catch you again. Bye-bye.
Okay, and from myself, it's been an educational evening. We've spoke with James Gilliland just as we were closing off there. He has agreed to come on and do a part 2. I do apologise for any questions that I did not get to ask James on your behalf. We have copied them and copied them over to James, and he said he'll either reply to us in an email or he will just answer them the next time he's on. So again, apologies for that. And
Vin said he'll be just looking for callers.
Yeah, Vin is on his own tonight. So if you're listening on PIR, stay tuned for Vin, and don't be afraid to call in as well. From myself, Stephen George, take care. We'll do it all again next week. Bye bye.